Continuing completed classics. Fulfilling failed franchises. Reinvigorating reviled rehashes. It's the follow-up Showdown! With Paul Getz, Travis McMaster, and Lauren Pacorni.
Hello and welcome to the follow-up Showdown 2, Nerds in Quarantine, where we continue to give worthy second chapters to stories that don't have them. I am your host, Paul Miller Smith Getz, and if this is the first time you're joining us, the way it works is we take a movie that either has no sequel or a sequel that doesn't hold a candle to its original, and each put our best foot forward trying to come up with the best possible continuation of the story. My guests today are a pair of entertainers. We've got animator, improviser, voiceover actor Derek Luetjen, and actor, improviser Jack Seavor McDonald. You can currently catch him on the Mindy Kaling Netflix series Never Have I Ever as Eric Perkins. Jack, Derek, how are you today?
I'm
fantastic.
good. Yeah.
In case anyone didn't get that very specific reference that I made with my name, it is a reference to the movie we are talking about today, 1995's Houseguest, starring Sinbad and Phil Hartman.
We interrupt this program for a summary of the film.
Kevin Franklin is a con man, always looking for his next get-rich-quick scheme. He owes money to the mob, and two gangsters come to collect. He tries to skip town, but they are waiting for him at the airport. After temporarily escaping them by letting his beloved guinea pig loose in an anti-save-the-cat moment, he comes across a family, the Youngs, who are waiting for an old friend of the father, Gary's, that he hasn't seen for 25 years, a celebrated dentist named Derek Bond. Kevin assumes this man's identity and lays low with the Youngs as their house guest over Memorial Day weekend. While he's there, he helps each member of the family with their own individual problems until the real Derek Bond shows up, and at the same time, the mobsters also find him and take him away. Thankful for how he's changed their lives, the Youngs go to save Kevin as a family. They kind of do, but he gets caught by the gangsters again, at which point he pays them off with a winning lottery scratcher that he's been holding on to for like a day. Several months later, he becomes independently wealthy by writing the best-selling Ultimate Guide to Being a House Guest book and moves in down the street from the Youngs. He also has a best friend named Larry who is a tattoo artist. For me, this was something of a pleasure. This was a movie that I watched a whole lot growing up, and I came up with doing it for a very arbitrary reason involving you, Jack. Can you guess what that was?
Okay, it is involving me specifically?
It is involving you.
Okay. Is it my last name being McDonald and this movie's apparent love of McDonald's?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. The first thought that I had was to do Mac and Me, the sort of famous cult McDonald's movie, simply because of your last name. But then I had a second thought because this specific movie meant so much to me in particular, or at least it did when I was a boy. I thought, let's give some love to this lesser known McDonald's movie.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I have in my notes here, I thought that it was going to be because the whole movie takes place over a Memorial Day weekend, and Memorial Day is coming up.
Oh, yeah, that would be equally as arbitrary. Yeah, so that's a good guess. The closer I've gotten to doing this episode, the more I've thought that maybe I picked a weird movie to do for this show. I guess I thought that this was a well-liked movie, and it's not. It has a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm getting that maybe not a lot of people have heard of it.
I think
do remember
that would be
watching
accurate.
as a kid.
You had... Okay.
I liked it a lot less as an adult. But, my girlfriend watched it with me, and she just absolutely loved it.
Oh, awesome. It certainly didn't live up to what I remembered, but there is likability to it. And I will say, as grating as the character of Kevin Franklin is, I think it is a good showcase for why Sinbad was a star.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, Sinbad was probably one of the best parts of the movie. He was honestly charismatic and like really trying.
Yeah. And even given some rough dialogue or just jokes that were hardly jokes, I felt like he still made it, like you said, he was very charismatic. I understand why he was given not just one, but a handful of movies to carry.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like they originally wrote the part for like an Eddie Murphy type, like someone who can just sell it on charisma. And then it's like, I'll take over and do my best.
It's interesting because I have in my notes that John Candy was the first choice to play Kevin Franklin, but he died before filming began. Which very different type of character, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
That almost makes me think that even more than I might have thought of what Sinbad was saying was improvised, because it is just a constant stream of words, just sort of whatever comes to his mind. The whole movie is just
told to like sell his situation. We're very uncomfortable.
Yes.
He's telling the story about all of his friends got eaten by sharks in front of him, and the eyeballs like touched him.
Yeah.
I was like, deeply uncomfortable listening to that. I had to get up and start walking around.
Well, that to me as a kid was one of my favorite moments, and specifically the line blood and bubbles and butts. And I still think of it as like an iconic line in my memory. As an adult watching that scene, it really, just like everything else that the character does, it really solidified to me that he's a psychopath. Because he's able to dive into that fake emotional story and even commit to seeming upset and then drop right back out of it at the drop of a hat.
I was thinking about that. I just rewatched that scene, and Phil Hartman just kind of takes it in stride. And like, it was such an absurd story. Like, why would anybody make it up? So, like, I feel like I might have it.
Okay, wait, hold on, though. Sorry. We need to talk about Phil Hartman as his character in general. Gary Young is the stupidest person I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, I understand that the character arc we watch him have is that he eventually stands up to his boss and makes peace with his own feelings about feeling intimidated by his wife's success. That's it for what that character has to go through.
Right.
However, his role in the movie is to just sort of allow Sinbad to run through his world untethered.
And just telling him to people. He keeps being like, oh, yeah, he's a great guy. And so other people just are like, oh, he's a good guy. I need to believe him.
Yeah. Well, and he immediately puts his own Band-Aid on everything Sinbad says by just laughing and going, oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. It's as if there's no one in his life that says anything funny ever.
Yes, absolutely. I have here in my notes, I wrote about Phil Hartman shouldn't have to fake laugh like that. Specifically at the end when it's supposed to be like the happy ending, but we'll get there.
I had forgotten how soothing Phil Hartman's voice was.
Oh,
and it really like brought back memories for me. Nothing specifically, but I was just like, I miss this man's voice. And I think I'll go and rewatch some of his old movies.
Oh, yeah. Put on some classic Simpsons. It's going to be a good time. I mean, I have endless, eternal respect for the man, and for as good as he was and as effortlessly as he could do anything. I just feel like the way this character was written, there was no making him seem like a believable human.
Yes.
Even the conceit of the basic premise of the movie, which is that he had this friend at camp 25 years ago and has invited him to stay for a weekend. I mean, I understand that he has a career and a reputation that makes it a thing that he can, do all these conferences or whatever they are, these presentations. But I just feel like even at the time, even in 1995, there's a lot that we have to immediately be sold on in terms of how little he knows about this guy that he's bringing into his house.
Exactly. I wrote how dumb Gary is like several times throughout the movie in my notes. I mean, he tries to be like, remember the camp song? And Sinbad literally goes doobie dooba da, a wooba dee da, and he's like, "This is fine. This is the song I remember."
Yeah, and what's weird about those moments is it seems as if he's doing that to try to confirm something.
Yeah,
and then every time that thing is not confirmed, and he's fine with it.
Yes. Oh God.
He seemed to me like a guy desperate to have a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see him later in the movie, like, throwing parties and stuff where they have, like, tons of acquaintances that have, like, similar backgrounds and, like to play golf together and whatever. And it seems like Phil's just being shit on by them constantly in, like, his daily life, and that he just is desperate for any sort of, like, oh, this guy likes me, this guy gets me, we're friends.
I think I think maybe more than friends, it's just fun. Any sense of fun is what gets Kevin through every single situation. Every time he's set up to prove that he is the man he's claiming to be, he says, "Just forget it. Everybody have fun."
Yeah.
And then everybody proceeds to do that.
He avoids a few situations by just telling people to get drunk.
Yeah.
We got some notes from the very beginning of the movie. Sinbad's car is responsible for global warming. It looked like the scene from Parasite where they're, like, fumigating the streets, and
yes,
it was just falling apart as he was driving, just to, like, really emphasize that this guy does not have it together.
Throughout the movie, I kept being reminded of Parasite. I mean, the Kevin Franklin character is easily as effective as a parasite as any of those people in the movie. I mean, in terms of the way he integrates himself into any situation and then survives.
Right.
That car reveal, I remember loving as a kid, and I loved it just as much as an adult. In fact, I like that whole opening sequence with the young Kevin in the fountain and all that stuff. I remember in restarting this movie, all the way up through the car sequence being like, oh yeah, this is just as good as I remember.
I do think the car is very funny when the Porsche or whatever is parked in front of his car. And you're like, oh, he's in that car. And then he moves slightly and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. It's a great reveal. I also love how specific and simple Kevin's likes are. Like, he always wanted a Porsche, and so he got a Porsche. You know what I mean? Like, he was never going to have any other car that wasn't a Porsche. It just happened to be a huge hunk of trash.
Right.
And he loves McDonald's, so he only eats McDonald's. Like, he knows what he likes, and he gets it however he can.
Yeah, including grabbing it out of someone's hands who is then fine with it because it's Gary the Dum-Dum.
Well, and Gary has a second Big Mac ready to go in that scene.
Yes.
I remember there being a time in which I showed it to some friends in high school, and those friends, made a big point of being like, oh my God, the product placement for McDonald's in this movie is crazy. And as a kid, I'd never noticed. I mean, I remembered it. It was just, as a kid, I was like, oh yeah, it's just a fun plot point. They love McDonald's.
Right.
What's the problem?
As a kid, you go to McDonald's so much, you're like, oh yeah, this is what adults do too. McDonald's very often. You're just like, oh my God, he's living off this?
He even says, and for the grown-ups, Mickey D's, right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I have a couple of fun facts related to McDonald's when it comes to this movie. One, the small town where they filmed the whole thing, Sewickley, which is a real town, did not have a McDonald's. So they built a completely functional McDonald's in the town that was open for business during the shoot, and then once the movie was over, they closed and dismantled it.
Oh my God. Do we have a budget on this movie?
The budget. Oh boy, yeah. Let me find that. My other fun McDonald's fact is that there was no promotional tie-in with McDonald's. This was literally just the script as originally presented.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
It feels like they sold this like to McDonald's, like, hey, we'll give you a lot of advertisement if you fund this entire movie. The fact that they did any money for that feels
based on how heavily it's featured. I was expecting this to be one of those VHSs that they sold at McDonald's, back in the day. But no, there was no promotional tie-in. The writers just I guess either loved McDonald's or loved that plot point. It had a budget of $10.5 million and grossed $26.3 million. So a moderate success.
Yeah, I guess so. Wow.
I mean, like I said, I don't remember this movie having any kind of a stink on it. Although, boy, in comparison to some modern bad movies, I still liked it more.
Sure. Yeah.
However, I will say that even in comparison to something like Home Alone 2, which features a lot of the same, like, okay, you got dumb criminal bad guys, you got kids, you got wackiness. Everybody was so much more over the top in this.
Yeah.
The bad guys especially. Those were some real cartoony mobsters.
Okay, let's talk about the mobsters.
I bet every day they showed up like, I wonder how silly I can get away with being. And then they just kept being told, yo, you nailed it.
I just kept thinking they must be exhausted after their shots. I don't think there was a single second they weren't pulling some emotion. It was either, I'm angry at you for being stupid, or, oh, I'm worried about Happy, or, oh, there he is, get him. It was just, whew.
Yeah.
I'm lightheaded just doing that.
I know. And just, so yeah, they must have been exhausted, but also it seems like they did those mobster scenes from 12 different angles and used all 12 angles. There was not 2 solid seconds where there wasn't a cut. The editor just had a problem.
I will say, for its running time being probably a little bit longer than it needed to be, the movie moved pretty well.
Yeah.
Pretty fast.
We took a break halfway through just to like get food or whatever, and I was like, oh wow, that moved by pretty fast. And it was like, oh good, it's at least halfway done.
I do remember what I think is really sort of the heart of the movie being that he's connecting with each member of the family and making their lives better. I remember that being more of the movie than it is. It's probably only about 10 minutes of screen time that he spends doing that.
Oh, it's basically one scene each. Like, with the son who wants to be an NBA star, whether it's through his own volition or his dad just telling him he wants to be an NBA star. And then the daughter he does tea with. He just, one scene with the oldest daughter where he, like, talks to her about the boyfriend who's the worst person in the entire world.
Well, and that scene really made me uncomfortable because the way, I mean, I know he also says that she needs to get over the dead guys, but most of what he says to her is just that how fine she is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. And then how we even got into that scene.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The amount of time the parents spend looking to him to solve their problems is insane.
They hadn't had a single moment together yet. Him and the oldest daughter, and then the parents, like, when she gets upset, go, well, you seem to have a connection with her, you go deal with this.
Yeah, it was insane.
Well, okay, so just sort of bringing it back to more of a non-specific, nothing specific to the plot, but just Kevin Franklin in general. He is, more than I remember, just the worst person. I mean, he's just a disaster of a person.
I found him deeply unlikable. And I wondering in the movie who the main character was supposed to be, like who we were supposed to relate to. And when I realized, like, oh no, this is all we get, because I was like, oh, Phil Hartman will be the likable one. And then when he kind of was like taking pot shots at his son for missing baskets and stuff, I was like, oh, Ugh.
Oh yeah. And he's shitty to his wife and I think he says at some point to his wife that you need to connect with the girls more. And then never proceeds to connect with the girls himself. So I think that was just sort of the writer letting it be known what he felt the household roles were back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think this writer has a very clear idea of what a racist person is like, of what a woman is like, and what a teenager is like.
Throughout the movie, it made me a little bit uncomfortable how often I was thinking, oh, he's getting away with all this because he's black. And all of the white people are just either transfixed or just don't, like, it's going over their heads, or they themselves just don't want to be racist. I don't know, but I like, maybe that's me putting that on there, but I definitely felt it constantly.
Whether it's intended or not, I do feel like that's how it was.
I was just going to say, I have in here, Kevin makes everything better. Anytime a character is like sad or there's an uncomfortable situation, like Derek said earlier, he's like, oh, this wine, it makes you drunk. That's what's good about it. Yeah. Take that, sommelier.
Boy, that sommelier scene. Well, okay. Just to get a little bit into the background of the filmmakers. So the writers that we are so fond of, their names are Michael J. Gaetano and Lawrence Gay, and they have no other film writing credits. Their other writing credits include a few episodes of Get Smart, which is pretty cool at least, and the short-lived Ferris Bueller series. But the director of this movie, Randall Miller, also directed the Kid and Play movie Class Act, The Sixth Man, and the wine country movie Bottle Shock. So I wondered if he gravitated toward sommelier-themed jokes and plot.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know any of those other movies.
The Sixth Man. I grew up watching The Sixth Man. It kind of sounds like the same way you grew up watching this one.
Yeah, I do remember seeing The Sixth Man at least.
I was a huge fan of the Brothers.
Oh yeah, Senseless, that was my jam.
I loved their sitcom was one of the first sitcoms I remember watching next to like Sister Sister and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just really enjoyed their sense of humor and whatever. So when any movie they came out with, I was just like, oh, I have to see that.
Yeah, I mean, they were great back in the day.
Yeah.
Another example that I wrote down of Kevin just being a total psycho is when he's making up with the dog and feeding the dog all the food. He's talking to that dog in the exact same way he talks to any person. There is no distinction between a dog and a person for Kevin Franklin. He's just going to talk his way through the situation until he wins.
And just the things he was saying to the dog, too.
Always about chasing women. Everybody needs a woman.
I gotta say, it was classy that they never used the B word at all. Because I kept waiting for it. Classier to the dog than he was to a lot of the people in the movie.
I like the use of the dog. It got me. I didn't remember the gag where the dog was tied up. The mom just says, "Oh, Carl." I really enjoyed that moment.
Yeah, that was a good one. And I remember.
Can we talk about how Kevin lies completely unnecessarily at times? Like when he finds the funeral jacket, and he just tells everyone in the party a different meaning for what the three letters stand for. And there's no
I think
to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a telling sequence about his psyche. I think that he really doesn't have as much control over his lying as one might think. I think it's pathological. It seems like that's just sort of how he reacts to absolutely every person is, what does this person want to hear? I'll tell them that. And then if that doesn't work, I'll just say whatever I have to get out of here.
Right. At one point during that joke montage where he's coming up with different meanings for GFH, I wrote one of the script notes accidentally got in the movie when the waitress said, "Is that a joke?"
That was just the actress giving her opinion. They left it in.
am I supposed to laugh at this? Do I?
It was very striking to me how none of them were funny, with the exception of like one, which was like, I think it was like G strings for something. That was the only one that like caught me off guard and genuinely seemed funny to me. But it just felt like there was like 10 to 15 jokes here, and none of them got punched up at all.
Yeah, I definitely got the sense that they just let Sinbad himself have carte blanche when it came to the one-liners. Because even in that sequence where he's driving at the beginning, he's talking constantly and making a bunch of jokes, but they're different kinds of jokes. Some of them are jokes about being a black person. Some of them are about TV shows. Some of them, like, he just pulls from wherever and throws it in. It's very inconsistent.
Oh yeah. One time in particular I can recall of that type of thing is when he first sees his bedroom at the Young's house, and for some reason he gets super excited about all the pillows, and and the editor like cuts around him jumping onto the bed and does this whole montage of him playing on a bed saying, I'm a pillow monster.
Well, and at that point, I was questioning, it's a long time before they give you a reason that he has to stay. Mm-hmm. Because he went with them just to get away from the mobsters at the airport. But then he stays for days before he gets the phone call from his buddy. That sort of like is supposedly what's keeping him there. And going back to what you were saying about the bed sequence, in general, I would say besides the drunken sommelier sequence, I don't know that any musical sequence in this movie is necessary.
100%.
Specifically the scene where he and Phil Hartman are trying on golf clothes.
Oh my God.
The idea of and also the fact that they're staying in the same spot where they are in the store. Yeah. The idea of two grown men doing the things that they're doing is insanity.
Yes. And he Franklin complains about how he looks like he didn't have a say in it.
Yeah.
I forget what joke he made, but he said something that was like, I look like blank.
Yeah, I'm sure it was hilarious.
Me too.
Probably you were laughing too loud to hear it, is what happened.
Exactly. That's definitely it.
This movie, there wasn't a whole lot, in doing these episodes, it's a lot of times I'll find some really fun stuff about what happened on set or that kind of thing. There's not a lot when it comes to Houseguest. And so what my question became was whatever happened to Sinbad, because the charisma is still apparent, at least. And, there's not a really fun answer. It sounds like the roles just stopped coming and he ran out of money. He's declared bankruptcy twice. Yeah.
It seemed like he just kind of he took comedy, he went to a NACA event, which is like how colleges book comedians. And he just gave the booker $100. He says, give me 5 minutes. If I'm not the funniest guy you've seen, I'll give you 1,000 or something like that. And he said he did that with no money to his name other than that. And he booked hundreds of shows from it because he was the most charismatic guy that went up there. So it makes sense to me that he became famous with an attitude and a charisma like that. So I always just assumed tired at the height of I don't know, with fame and a mansion in Malibu somewhere.
I mean, hopefully he has some of those things. Based on that, I didn't realize how autobiographical this movie was. I mean, it immediately reminds me of the scene where he helps the kid beat the older kids in basketball. He bets the family's car.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, that's like a gambling addict move right there.
Well, he then proceeds to cheat immediately. He starts bouncing balls off of little kids' noses and busting their faces in. And
I mean, everybody seems to think that that's fair game.
Yeah.
Even
and I believe that
he just comes in holding his nose I guess there's a new way they bounce past these days.
Yeah. And I believe when the family is summing up all the ways in which he helped them, that is the boy's way, is he taught me the bounce pass.
Why does he, like, is it just to humiliate them that he says, "Oh, well, you have to give us your clothes if I'm putting up the car"?
Yeah.
Well, he seems, for the most part, everything works for him.
Well, yes.
That he tries. But it's very apparent that he's great at basketball. And for a second, I thought, well, why didn't he try to play basketball? But I feel like the character just wouldn't do that. He's too lazy.
Right, exactly. And also, what is a group of kids going to do with a car?
Also, straight from the airport, he drives their car like a crazy person, almost killing tons of people. And Phil Hartman's reaction is, whoa, you have changed.
Yeah. Completely disregarding the safety of the children in the back seat. I don't have kids, but if I was responsible for a lizard, I'd be like, hey man, can you not drive like this? I'm trying to take care of this lizard in the back.
And that's the other thing about Gary is he was best friends with the real Derek Bond, who's a total conservative stiff. Mm-hmm. So it seems like Gary should be a conservative stiff, and he's not. It's as if he's always tried to be, but Sinbad is the first person who, once again, ever showed him the concept of fun.
Yeah.
And now he's realizing what life can be.
And that is also a good point of just recognizing fun and being like, I'm going to let this ride. This is the only thing in my life that's ever been different. I'm going to see what happens.
Even giving the movie that, it is crazy when Kevin is taken away by the mobsters and they decide to go after him as a family.
Yeah.
I don't understand that decision at all. I understand enough that they like the guy, but it's not enough.
No.
Yeah. Especially with like the wife too. The wife seemed like the most down-to-earth, grounded character in this whole thing. And even she was like, yeah, let's go save him. Like, no, man, they had guns.
Yeah. And when they get to the race and Gary runs by himself after them, she cheers. She throws him a hand up in the air and goes, "Go, Gary!" Like, no concern for whether or not he's going to come back alive. Oof. Yeah. Yeah, not quite the classic that I remember, unfortunately. But we're going to pitch some sequels to it anyway. How's that sound?
Great. Sounds great.
Do both of you have pitches?
I've got a couple ideas.
Yeah, I have some sort of half ideas as well. I don't have fully fleshed out concepts, but
cool. Yeah, I've got
a sentence.
I mean, that's all you need. I have a direct sequel pitch and a modern sequel pitch in my chamber. However, before we get into that, I always ask the following questions as sort of a preface to the pitches. Number one, should this movie have a sequel?
No.
No. It shouldn't have had an original. It shouldn't have had it itself.
I guess when I pitched this to you as the episode, I guess I did think it should have a sequel before rewatching it. And now I'm more in your camp. I don't. I guess I'm glad that it exists for the sake of mine having the nostalgia. But other than that, yeah, it could just not be there, and the world would be fine.
It sort of has the attitude and like feeling of a bad sequel already, but But another thing, though, that I was thinking regarding, like, you guys watched it in your childhood, I do genuinely think it is a good children's movie, or like a 7 to 10-year-old. I think it's got a good pace and sort of stuff that 7 to 10-year-olds like.
That's true. They're never not trying to have fun in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But who the fun is for definitely seems like children.
Yes.
It does feel like this is like a shoddily written sequel where they're like, look, we have to go into production in a month. What can you put together? And it just never quite got finished or polished in the early phases.
Yeah, for how it seems, which is just a first draft that everybody stuck to, with the exception of Sinbad, who once again was given free reign to say whatever he wants, scene to scene. It came out pretty well.
Yeah.
Considering.
Right.
I will give it that it told the story from beginning to end. And even though it did feel very shallow at times, I thought, you know what? That's better than some movies I've seen.
Okay, so then the next question I have, sequel or prequel? What is the sweet spot if you're going to do it?
I think consider a prequel. I've just never...
I don't know. I don't
know.
When I think back on being a kid and watching this movie, I think that probably the ultimate other movie that I would like to have seen connected to it would be a prequel, and it would be about Derek and Gary as kids at Camp Maple Ridge.
Okay. Watch that. Give it a heavyweights vibe and I'm in.
The problem, I guess, is you don't get Kevin in that equation, but maybe there could just be a subplot about where Kevin is at that time as a kid, the mischief he's getting into.
Well, the movie starts with him hanging a kid by his ankles over a fountain and just dipping his head in, like mobster style, for the other kid to just grab him change from the fountain. So yeah. I would love to see more of his hijinks where he's just an absolute delinquent.
I do want to know more about Larry, Kevin's put upon friend, who seems to think he has absolutely no control in the situation every time.
Yeah. Yeah, this asthmatic tattoo artist. I don't think they ever actually say, like, oh, here's your inhaler. Yeah, you have asthma, but he's just out of breath all the time.
Yeah, in the beginning, I thought it was because he lugged the box upstairs. So it was like really confusing that throughout the movie, he used that as just like a delivery choice of all of his lines.
It was how he conveyed emotion.
It was either deep breathing or screaming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He looked like he was just like uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if he was wearing like a fat suit of some kind, but his body just looked odd. And it felt like he was just really hot in whatever they gave him to wear.
Yeah, I think he's just a weird shaped guy. I do, and going back to, so like, yes, there'd be plenty of ripe juiciness to draw from Kevin's youth. But in thinking about what would be going on at Camp Maple Ridge with Gary and Derek, could still be fun. I do want to know where the origin of the butt slaps came from. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Because throughout the movie, Phil Hartman is constantly slapping Sinbad's butt. And that doesn't track for me as something that Gary or Derek would be comfortable with.
That's so funny. With everything else going on in the movie, that seemed so minor. I couldn't.
I think there's 3 or 4 of them. I never, paid any heed to it before this viewing.
Well, it felt like Phil Hartman seeing Sinbad like immediately snapped him into like his childhood when he was the happiest he had ever been. Like when you see an old friend, you kind of revert back to that. But no, they didn't seem like they were like basketball players or some sport. They didn't seem sporty. Where like that's socially acceptable. So yeah, I would like to know the origin of that.
To that point, he does mention that Derek was the camp basketball star.
Oh yeah,
that you may have just answered my question.
I don't think I think Sinbad himself is necessary for there to be another movie in the Houseguest universe.
Yes, Kevin Franklin is more necessary to the franchise than Gary Young.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that being as good of a transition as I think we're going to get, does anyone want to go first with their pitch?
I have one.
We're going to have one hell of a Memorial Day weekend.
I would like the exact opposite movie. I want to see Phil Hartman has in the ghetto for 3 days. I want there to be a scene where he has to get that ST3 haircut that his oldest son I want to see him just like lie his way through situations just because they just both seem like such bad liars. And I just want to see the exact same movie but done with Phil Hartman in the ghetto.
Do you have a title for this proposed movie?
No, but I'm accepting pitches. Let's go with
how about okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my first thought was Houseguest.
That is exactly mine. That was exactly what I was gonna say.
Good. I love it.
I will. There's some merit there. I do want to see that. I want to see Gary become more Kevin, for sure. Mm-hmm. Which is,
and the whole movie could be like Phil Hartman's character learning to relax, like learning to actually have fun in life and learning how to talk to people like a human being.
Oh, he's up for it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead with my direct sequel pitch next, and then you can have a turn, Jack, and we'll keep going around.
Yes, I'm in the house. I'm jumping out.
Less than a year after Houseguest, Kevin Franklin now lives down the street from the Young family. The kids love spending time there because his house is like a big party space. There's just one problem. Kevin has spent his way through all of his book publishing money and returned to his old habits of investing in get-rich-quick schemes. When his involvement in a number of shady investment schemes lands Kevin in jail, the Youngs take it upon themselves to get him out. Gary acts as his counsel, while the kids begin renting out Kevin's funhouse to their friends for parties and things like that. Kevin, meanwhile, gets things wired for himself in prison pretty quickly with his fast-talking, fun-loving ways. He even has guards smuggling in McDonald's for him. But his rise to the top is met with anger from a few particularly violent inmates who are used to having things their own way. Separately, while this is going on, Kevin aids in building the confidence and prison rep of a new, like, nebbish, sort of white-collar inmate named Rudy. My dream casting for this role is Stephen Tobolowsky.
Oh my gosh, I love Stephen Tobolowsky.
Yeah. He's the inmate that Kevin is sort of giving the Gary treatment to in prison. So after going through some of the things in Kevin's house, Emily, Gary's wife, grows concerned that Kevin might be past help in terms of the way he lives. So she brings in Larry, Kevin's old kid friend, to tell some old stories of Kevin's ways and help convince Gary that prison might be the right place for Kevin. Gary is almost convinced until there's a failed attempt on Kevin's life in prison, which sends Gary into overdrive trying to help him. Gary even takes up some of Kevin's Ponzi sales schemes to help raise money towards the cause. So you do get to see a little bit of Gary being Kevin-esque. Throughout the film, Kevin meets with each of the Youngs in prison, like through the glass, and sees the negative influence he's had on all of their lives, and thus decides to throw his own trial by pleading guilty. In a moment of touching sacrifice, he sells himself down the river, but is saved at the last minute by the appearance of Rudy, the Stephen Tobolowsky character, who takes full responsibility as the mastermind of the Ponzi scheme that got Kevin busted in the first place. Kevin and the Youngs celebrate, and Kevin vows that he's going to change his ways for real this time. 6 months later, he's back in jail, but minimum security prison this time. So he has the same perks, but no violent enemies. And the Young family, a little more streetwise now, but with their integrity still intact, more or less, they visit him often. And that is my pitch for Houseguest 2, The Big House.
Oh.
I love that.
Well done.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that idea more than the movie that we just watched.
Yes. But I will say, when it says 6 months later, it has to say 6 months and 4 days later, because that's a very important joke in Houseguest.
I forgot about that. I mean, I had not noticed that until this last viewing. Is the first one 25 years and 4 days later?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a weird, specific joke.
Yeah.
But I will happily take that note.
Like Derek said, I think that is absolutely in the realm of this world that they've created, and it would make sense. It would be fun to watch, I think.
I just felt like it was important to acknowledge that Kevin is a problem. Like, rather than a solution.
Person you should want to be. I will give you a note. I think the attempt on his life should happen in the prison basketball game. I was trying to think of
like that.
It's like a playoff basketball game in prison, and he has to win for some reason, but he also can't get killed for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and I definitely I feel like based on how the first one went, you would, even though the Youngs kind of have more to do in this one, you would still be spending most of your screen time with Kevin in prison.
Oh, there's definitely got to be a scene of him in solitary, joking to himself like he does in the car in the beginning of the Houseguest.
Yeah.
Instead of him being driven insane, all the guards that were watching him in solitary are driven insane.
No one seems to mind him, as irritating as he is. Even Jeffrey Jones, who he kind of puts down, never full on. I mean, he like tries to bust him at the end, but yeah, I don't know. He doesn't seem to grate on anybody, including his best friend, who it seems like his life he's ruined over and over again.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Larry, there's 2 jokes in the movie that I don't know that I understood as a kid, and I still don't understand. When the Harley biker drives into his tattoo parlor and yells at him for drawing a Vespa on his chest instead of a Harley, why did that happen? Well, I mean, why? Why? I have no reason to believe that Larry doesn't know what he's doing as a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just don't understand why he felt like he could get away with that, or why there was no incident that caused him to have to draw it that way. So,
right. Yeah.
And then the other joke that confused me, and more as a kid baffled me, is when the gangsters ask for the tour of the country club. And they introduce themselves as the Millers, then the Smiths, then the Miller Smiths. The guy who gives them the tour says, "Oh, the Miller Smiths." So
yeah,
there are Miller Smiths?
I think that is what is implied.
I think it's either that or he just didn't want to look stupid and he was like newer. He's like, "Oh, there must be a Miller Smiths. That seems like a hoity-toity name."
I guess he could just be so desperate to get membership. I mean, he is very aggressive in his pitch.
Yeah, and also they wait such a long time before giving up on the tour and throwing this guy off the golf cart.
Oh yeah, the Sinbad and his friends were at the 9th hole, I believe.
Well, and I don't really understand what happens to the gangsters once they throw the guy out of the cart. I don't understand what happens to the cart. Like, where they go.
They somehow accidentally drive right next door to the gun range. Which is
that's right.
A golf course.
And it looks like they're shooting at the people on the gun range. So somebody died, probably.
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
They just didn't show it.
Somehow that was the most absurd thing in the movie to me. The fact that everyone gets quiet for golf is right next to a gun range, and this is supposed to be like a hoity-toity country club.
Yeah. Also, the logic of the speed golf really falls apart, because based on the way they're doing it, it would take them way longer to get through the course.
He throws the ball. He, at the very beginning, they all hit their balls, like, let's say 100 yards. He's not throwing his ball that far.
No, he throws it shittily.
Yeah, he throws it like almost like a shot put. Just kind of like, But it goes just as far as everyone else's. I guess his height was a huge advantage in that throw. But then he just, I guess, proceeds to play the rest of the game like that, where nobody notices he's just throwing his ball.
Yeah. Well, and once again, he does that so offhandedly that the implication is he just is lying always, always, always. He is not, like, I definitely felt like I was supposed to think of him as a normal guy that I want to be okay, but he is not. He is not a normal man.
Yeah, you put it perfectly when you said pathological liar, and he is 100% a con man.
Okay, well, Jack, are you ready for your pitch?
Yeah, sure.
Ooh, happy. I'm telling you, you're going to be very happy here. Extremely happy.
I definitely thought of this sort of a similar thing as you. Kevin is definitely going to run out of his money from his book because he doesn't make smart money decisions ever. So I was thinking like he runs out of money, but he lives in the same neighborhood as the Young family. And if this is more of a current sort of modern sequel, then he starts running like an Airbnb. And I'm thinking, he's got to deal with a bunch of new people coming into his house and like figuring out how to host people. And I think many hijinks could ensue from his inability to tell the truth ever. And people will ask about weird things on the wall, or if the house is like safe, and he'll be like, "You've never had a shaky table before? It makes breakfast taste better." And so just him interacting with a whole new host of people, and then having the reliable Young family to sort of have breaks of like, man, this Airbnb business is hard. And so it's basically going to be sort of him coming around to understanding Gary's position in the first movie, and learning that the lying needs to stop, and he needs to just go and fix things to have a smoother running life. And for a title, I'm thinking we just add an S. It's Houseguests.
Ooh, okay.
Love it.
Nice. Well, and it tracks with where the first one ends up, because he wrote that How to Be a Houseguest book. So, of course, he's this big house guest celebrity, then people would want to come be a guest in his house.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I think that works.
Thank you.
I like the idea. I also like the idea of him running out of money, and because he just keeps establishing how bad he is in money throughout the movie. But they just have expanded their yogurt empire too much, and he needs to take over a store to help ease their burden. So it's just him trying to run a yogurt store and deal with teenagers that are working for him.
Shop guest.
Yeah.
That sounds like as much of a movie as we got with this one.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, my other concept.
It's like a grand finale. Yeah!
As a modern take on this, sort of make it like a Uncut Gems, which I don't know if either of you guys saw that movie.
I have not had the chance.
I did not.
Well, I don't want to ruin it, so I will hold back on part of this, but basically it's just a movie shot in more or less real time that is an intense, gritty, dramatic telling of a scheme of Kevin's gone wrong. You sort of see where he's at in modern day. He's no longer linked to the Youngs at all. He's his same scheming, lying, struggling self, and it's sort of like his main plot of the first one when it comes to like being in with the mob or someone that he owes money to being after him, and it's just a very sort of like documentation of his struggle to survive and keep going with his scheming, lying, fun-having ways as the intensity cranks up more and more. I think bringing it into a different genre would elevate the first one. If people were to see this movie called Houseguest 2, they'd be interested in where it came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one. Well, I don't want to tell you the title for that one because it spoils something in Uncut Gems. So we'll just call that Untitled.
All right.
Well, we did good work here today, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think that we gave the first movie better than it deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we watched it.
Well, I'm happy to stay on the line and chat with you guys some more, but before we stop recording, would there be anything that you'd like to plug on our way out?
Just, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch Never Have I Ever on Netflix, go watch that. And you can find me on my Instagram at Jack Seavor, JackSeavor.
Catch me on Instagram, Derek's Dumb Hobbies. Derek, all one word. Derek is Derek. And yeah, go watch Never Have I Ever. I absolutely loved it. I was so proud seeing Jack in it. I turned him into some memes and posted those online.
Oh, nice.
Very much Team Eric.
I've yet to see it, but it looks fantastic. And Ethan, a friend of mine who was in the same improv class as Jack and I, has sent me several clips of Jack in it, and I've delighted in all of them. So I am looking forward to it. It looks like a fantastic series in general. So very, very cool, and congratulations on that, Jack.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I was going to pick up some lottery scratchers in an on-themed way to declare a winner, but in lieu of that, because I didn't do it, I guess we could vote.
Okay.
I can't see your hands, so I guess just say the word vote, one vote, and you can vote for as many pitches as you like. So it's not like you have to pick an all-time favorite. We'll just sort of go on average number of votes.
All right.
So we'll start with Houseguest. One vote from me.
Oh,
one vote for me as well. Yeah.
So then we have Houseguest 2, The Big House.
I will cheat on the ballot, and I will also sign my brother's name. So I'm going to give you 3 votes on this.
Whoa. Holy cow, that's a first.
Yeah.
I think, one vote for me for The Big House as well, because that one sounds the most likely to be made.
Next was Houseguests with an S from Jack, which I will give 1 vote to.
I would love to see Houseguests have some element of them needing to band together to defend the house. Home Alone somehow. Against
Housekeepers. Yeah.
I'll give that a vote. I'd love to see that one. Honestly, any of these sequels sound like fun ideas. I think we just gotta start writing,
Yeah. What was your second sequel pitch called, Derek?
Yo Guest.
Oh, that's right. Shop Guest.
Shop. Yeah.
I'm going to give that 2 votes.
I think
okay.
I think I'm going to agree with Derek.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, at least I gave it some love. And then the final one to vote on would be the Untitled Uncut Gems Houseguest hybrid film.
I'll give it a vote. I mean, I got to see Uncut Gems, but for now, it has a vote.
I'll give it a vote for myself just for the sake of wanting to see Sinbad return in a glorious fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But because of Derek's, I believe it was 4 votes, the winner of the follow-up showdown today is Houseguest 2, The Big House.
Good, fine, and healthy. And baby, you it. Bam!
So thank you guys for that. Boy, this is an emotional moment for me.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
I didn't let little Paul down. So
No, definitely not.
Well, thanks again for your time and your ideas and all this. It was really fun. I'd love to have you back on, but until then, good luck with quarantine and stay safe, guys.
Thanks, man. You too. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Aha. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. On the next follow-up showdown, I'm thrilled to have the whole gang here, and what better film to celebrate the occasion than 1976's Look What's Happened to Rosemary's Baby.
I can think of few movies I've enjoyed less.